I'm not a writing guru or an industry expert, but I am a writer and I've faced the same predicament as others. I've struggled to find the time. As writers, we're passionate about our craft. We're in love with our stories. And not only writing, but finishing the projects we start is important to us. Despite this, life can seem like a real obstacle to getting our butts in the chair. Whether it's a hectic job, a stream of children, or something like the pandemic, which is affecting all industries, it can feel impossible to write. Add to this lack of time any insecurities in your writing or burnout, and you end up with the perfect recipe for giving up altogether. Fortunately, there are strategies one can use to make the time. They're nothing spectacular, and not every strategy will work for every person. But these are methods many swear by. To begin, I'll cover those methods which worked for me before listing what has worked for others. Before we begin, I'm Riley and this is Otherworldly Fiction. On this channel, I ramble about books and fantasy, with Harry Potter and Twilight being my favorites. And I also offer the occasional writing advice. If any of this sounds like your cup of tea, hit that subscribe button. Posts are on Fridays. There are a variety of tactics you can use to create more writing time for yourself. Number 1 on this list is flexible hours. Granted, this option isn't open to everyone. If you have bills to pay and children to chaperone, you might not have the luxury of setting your own hours. That said, there are more options than there used to be when it comes to choosing your work. Employers in general seem more casual. If you're lucky, you might find an agreeable boss who's willing to work with you to choose the best days for both of you. You can't always count on this, but it doesn't hurt to ask around. If you're looking for a part-time job, talk to your friends. Find out which jobs they liked and which they didn't, and then apply accordingly. If you hear that the schedules are erratic and inconsistent, that people phone in sick frequently, and that there's a high turnover, those are signs the workplace isn't so great. On the other hand, one of my friends, on working 2 days a week at a coffee shop, was fairly lucky. She'd only been working a few months when her boss consented to give her a couple weeks off. That might not sound like a big deal, but employers aren't actually obligated to offer any vacation time until you've worked at a place for a year. Moreover, don't come into a job making demands. No one wants to hire an entitled worker. Instead, talk to your friends or to those working at places you're considering and find out what kind of boss you'll have. More and more jobs also offer remote work, which may give you the flexibility you desire. Some people also become freelancers, setting their own hours or working on contract. You might become a cover designer to pay the bills, or a book editor. You might make a healthy living as a dog walker, or even afford something like paid vacations by becoming a professional house sitter. In addition to exploring your job options, you might also talk to your family. If you're still living at home, your parents might be okay with you working part-time. Simply make it clear that when you're not at work, you're writing. Show you're putting your time to productive use. If you're in a partnership, you might also talk to your partner. Other creators, especially author tubers, have been able to make it happen by remaining home while their partner brings home a paycheck. What you negotiate between you and your partner will vary, but you might only have to work part-time, or not at all, depending. Of course, this has to be fair. If your partner is going to be earning all the money, at least to begin, you might volunteer to handle the chores, walk the pets, and cook the dinners. After all, you're being given leave to pursue your dreams. As mentioned at the start, this won't be a luxury for everyone. If you have a staggering mortgage, or you simply live somewhere ridiculously expensive like Vancouver, working full-time at an inflexible job may be your only option. Thankfully, there are other tricks for completing your writing goals. Number 2 on this list is scheduling. Whatever time you have to work with, whether it be writing days or the hours squeezed between your demanding job, they have to be planned out. Be intentional about when you write. If you wait for inspiration to strike, it will fail you. Yes, inspiration happens occasionally, but it's not to be relied on. Instead, by creating a schedule and habits, you trigger inspiration. If you're only off on weekends, make Saturday your designated writing time. Choose which hours of that day work for you, and then commit to them. Don't make plans during those hours. If Saturday mornings comprise your writing time, make that clear to your friends. Keep any social arrangements or plans to the afternoons or evenings. Tell others what your plans are. If you have family, let them know you need this quiet time. Even if you only have an hour to spare each week, be protective of that hour. Your favorite television show isn't going anywhere, and good friends will understand. Obviously, there will be days when you can't write. There will be those Saturdays when you have the flu, when you have a wedding to attend, a vacation, an accident in the family, or some other, for better or worse, disruptive event. There will even be days where you need to unwind, and that's okay. If you miss the mark one day, don't beat yourself up. It's possible you're burnt out and need to recharge. Just be sure not to fall into the habit of procrastination. If you miss 4 Saturdays in a row because you're just not feeling it, there's a problem. However, missing a month or more of time is completely valid if you're going through a bad time. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, but preserve select days and hours and stick to them. Number 3 on this list is having an outline. In addition to the last 2 methods, this is one I swear by, and after scheduling, it's probably the most important one to me. Of course, it won't work for everyone. If you're a pantser, you might resist this tactic. However, even pantsers can benefit from a basic outline. If you're a pantser, you might make a list of events you want to happen in your story. Come up with 15 bullet points to represent your novel. It's broad strokes, and keep the beginning, middle, and end in mind as you do so. Come up with the climax. Do you want it to feature a dragon? And if so, what kind of challenges can that dragon offer your hero? Some writers like to be as surprised as the reader. But if it works for you, come up with the ending first. Create the principal cast, their backstories, and their roles within the story. Write out your story's themes, and fill the middle in with potential adventures. You can always scrap some of these later, but having a solid list of possibilities will give you a jumping off point and save you from those blank page flashing cursor moments. If you're a plotter, it's ideal to follow a template. Many use the hero's journey, but I swear by Save the Cat for writing my novels. Though the Save the Cat model was originally created for screenplays, it also works for books, giving you beats to follow. Some worry that following this will make their stories generic or formulaic, but how original the story is will be down to the writer. Every genre will differ too. The beats are vague enough to allow for full creativity while still giving you a guideline. Don't treat the template as a set of rules, but as a guide. If you're a complete slave to it, there's a possibility of ending up with a predictable story. However, such templates have been proven to work again and again. Star Wars and Lord of the Rings both follow a hero's journey, and even feature many of the same archetypes, but they're still unique from one another. Harry Potter likewise follows a hero's journey, but it remains original even from other fantasies like Lord of the Rings. How detailed you make your outline will depend on you. For my part, I had to experiment. I started by being an uber planner, making a bullet point of every event in conversation, but soon found this way made for a paint-by-the-numbers experience in my writing I wasn't partial to. I then tried my hand at being a pantser, only to end up unhappy with the end products. Even for rough drafts, I found them too meandering for my taste, and couldn't figure out what the heart of each story was supposed to be. Worse, as both a plotter and a pantser, I had no outline. After adopting an outline and placing my ideas within its confines, I ended up with rough drafts which made me feel hopeful. They still needed editing, but I felt I had something cohesive to work with. Having an outline can not only save you some editing, but it can make the writing itself easier. I never go into a writing session without knowing what's going to happen. Those smaller events, like jokes or arguments, can still happen on the fly, giving me that creative freedom which makes writing so worthwhile. With an outline, you might find you never have blank page syndrome again. I can't guarantee it, but it's been a game changer for me. Number 4 on this list is writing sprints. Writing sprints have never been my preferred method, as I consider myself more of a binge writer, but other people swear by them. If lack of concentration factors into your inability to write, you might try writing sprints. You set a time, anywhere between 10 minutes or an hour, and then write as much as you can in that time. You might make a commitment to yourself to write for at least 15 minutes. After that, any additional sprints are a bonus. Set your clock, write for 15 minutes, and then take a break for 5. If you're still feeling good, set the clock again and write for another 15. If you feel good after that, rinse and repeat. Keep resetting the clock. You might be shocked when you realize it's suddenly been 2 hours and you have another 1,000 words down. As it turns out, writing a book, at least for some people, is not unlike working out. My own resistance to this method might explain why I haven't started exercising yet. Number 5 on this list are word goals. If timed writing doesn't do it for you, focusing on a goal might work instead. Rather than worry about writing for a set amount of hours, choose a word goal and one which is realistic for you. This varies wildly between writers. Most recommend you start with something easy, like 500 words. Of course, there are superhumans out there who churn out 10,000 words a day. I commend those people, and if it works for them, that's great, but I've personally never felt that was necessary. As stated earlier, I'm more of a binge writer. Instead of worrying about word counts or times, I swear by outlines and scheduling because this is what has worked for me. You don't have to write every day to call yourself a writer. When it comes to my novels, I only write once a week, but that day is precious to me, and even I, ignoring word counts, have my own goals. I have tried daily writing with word goals before. However, despite the amazing progress I made, I recognized it wasn't a pace I'd be able to maintain forever. If I committed to writing every day, I also wouldn't have time for other ventures like my blog or this YouTube channel. I don't like to put all my eggs in one basket. However, it's worth mentioning my experiment had some promising results. In less than half a year, I managed to write 3 different books in rough draft form. This was done by writing 3,500 words a day. I gave myself weekends off, and there were days I missed the mark, but it was gratifying to come away with so much completed work in such a short time. While I don't worry about word counts now, I do measure my goals in other ways. On a writing day, you can quantify what you want to complete by words, pages, or chapters. For me, I go by chapters. 2 chapters is the goal. I might write 3 chapters on a good day, and on a bad day, I will only complete 1. It doesn't sound like much, but 2 chapters a week adds up quickly. And thankfully, those bad days where I only manage a chapter are rare, likely because of how ingrained the habit now is. Over the years, I've found this is what worked best for me, but everyone is different, and experimentation is key to finding out what works for you. That said, experimentation can't begin until you have a goal. Whether it be 1,000 words a day or 2 chapters a week, make daily or weekly goals for yourself. Number 6 on this list is to write at midnight. You don't have to write at midnight literally, but if some ungodly hour is what you like to write during, or all you have, use it and ignore what others say. Writers throughout history have taken advantage of unusual hours to complete their work. We've all heard of the writers who crawled out of bed at 5 in the morning and cranked out 3 hours of solid work before the children woke up. If you want to write badly enough, there's always a way to make time. If you're not a morning person, and to be fair, most people aren't, swing for the midnight hour. When the kids have gone to bed and dinner has been put away, write. If you have time to scroll mindlessly through Instagram or binge on a television show you don't know if you like or not, you have the time to write. Write at 5 in the morning or until 1 in the morning. You shouldn't do this forever because sleep is paramount for your health. But if you can manage it once or twice a week, even you'll be surprised how much the words start to add up. Even if you don't have an hour to yourself, and if you don't, my condolences, because that in itself is extremely difficult, try writing during spare moments. Write while you're waiting for the bus. Write during your lunch break. Write in bed. Everyone has spare moments, and you can use these to boost your word count. Which brings me to number 7 on this list. Cut out the distractions. Everyone has these spare moments, but most of us use them badly. Now, I'm not one of those productivity maniacs who advocates for stuffing every minute with something productive, especially if you don't have to. You need minutes, even an hour, where you can stare off into space or lose yourself in a great TV show. You need time to do nothing and recharge. As a writer especially, you need time to daydream or think. You need a clear head. You also need spare minutes to read or relax or soak up writing advice. Most importantly, you need to recharge. That's understandable. The problem is many people don't use this time to recharge themselves. Instead, during their spare moments, they cram their head with more junk, with bad news, with FOMO-inducing photographs, and content which is mostly designed to make them feel bad about themselves. Social media is a major time sink, and it's been linked to depression. People who are always out of time to do anything will find themselves spending an average of 4 hours a day scrolling through their phone. Even broken into pieces, that's still 4 whole hours. 2 of those could be dedicated to writing, while still saving the other 2 for a glass of wine, a great movie, or a long shower. If you have a literal 4 hours a day at your disposal for doom scrolling, you have the time to write. Instead of worrying about what's going on with Johnny Depp or Amber Heard, you should be writing. Save the crazy news stories for the weekend. If you have Instagram, delete it. There are exceptions if you use it for marketing, but there should still be clear boundaries. Make it a point to never spend more than an hour on any social media app, and restrict it to half an hour if possible. During this half hour or hour, you can create content, respond to comments, and engage with a handful of posts. More than that, you shouldn't need to do. Moreover, you shouldn't have more than 1 or 2 platforms which need that level of dedication. I personally use TikTok, but I do so intentionally. I make a pile of drafts, I post twice a day on my 3 videos, and then I'm off. This means I probably don't spend more than 10 minutes or even 5 minutes on the platform a day. If I do spend 2 hours on TikTok, it's only to create a pile of drafts so that for 2 to 3 weeks I can go back to ignoring it. I pop in to check comments in the evening and then I'm off again. In this way, my free time is free for relaxing my mind, reading all those great books I want to show off on BookTok, and writing. If your self-control is really bad, you can delete your favorite app temporarily. Even creators who use the apps for marketing make a point of deleting them, only re-downloading them when they want to make a post. Then they delete them again. You might not be able to delete all of your apps, especially those like TikTok, which need to remain on your phone for the preservation of drafts. But there are other programs which can literally block you out of your apps or programs during designated times. There are even apps which you can open while you work, but which will penalize you if you are caught falling into a distraction. It's especially important during your writing time not to fall into distractions. For me, it's safe to open a browser to look up a word or clarify a name, but that doesn't work for many people. If you feel the need to start clicking shit when you open a browser, just don't do it. Funny cat videos are not more important than your writing. You just found out that elephants have extremely long pregnancies. That's really cool, but now you haven't met your word count and you feel bad about yourself as a human being. Cut out the distractions and your writing, along with your hobbies and relaxation times, will thank you. In conclusion, Not all of these methods will work for everyone. I swear by a few of them, but find some of the others just don't jive with me. Through experimentation, only you can determine what strategies work. But once you find them, it's important to stick to them. What works for you might change over time, and that's okay, but you have to keep trying new things. Tweak your schedule. If you like word counts but still feel something isn't right, try increasing or lessening the amount before you try something else. You'll likely need a combination of strategies too, ideally between 2 or 3 from this list. For example, you might want to mix word counts with writing sprints, or scheduling with outlining. Whatever works, keep adapting it as needed and be intentional. It goes without saying that you should also look after yourself. Never compromise your health to write. A few early mornings should be safe, but don't deprive yourself of vital sleep on a daily basis. Take the time to eat properly and to walk. Stretch even during writing sessions and get out of the house. After all, if you're not healthy, you can't be happy or focused. And if you're not happy or focused, you can't write. There's always a way to make time. It will be more difficult for some than for others. We all have varying degrees of responsibility, and shit happens. I can admit to being in a privileged position, and not everyone has the same luxuries. But it's my hope that there are enough options on this list for everyone, that there are strategies, whatever your circumstances, which can help you to write that book. What strategies do you use to meet your writing goals? What is your work in progress about? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and happy writing.